Let's start with our opening presenter. And our opening presenter for today's conference is Andy Siow, who is a senior manager at GS1 Singapore. And Andy brings with him more than 17 years of experience in areas of GS1 global standards and automatic identification and data capture, technology, traceability system, and technical solutions. So he will be sharing his expertise on how GS1 standard supports product labeling requirements such as Europe MDR regulation. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Andy. Hi, Andy, how are you?
Hi, thank you for the introduction. I'm good. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you. So thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. And it's really an honor for us to have you here. And we are looking forward to have a great session from you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
you. Can I share my slides now?
Sure, sure. You can share your slides so that I can tell you that is it properly working or not. Okay. Yeah, it's perfectly working. So good luck. Stage is all yours now.
All right, thank you very much. All right, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting GS1 Singapore to participate in this conference to share on this topic, global regulatory standards, major trends in pharma and medical device identification. Earlier on, host has introduced myself. I'm the senior manager for technical standards services. So I have this area for more than 70 years, especially in AIDC technologies, traceability systems, and technical solutions. So back, I'm also involved in the area of healthcare sector engagement, and advocating the use of GS1 standards in the healthcare. So my topic today will cover the introduction about GS1, how they are involved in the healthcare, how you can use GS1 system of standards to meet your supply chain needs and regulatory compliance to make device identifications and labels. And lastly, we also talk about GS1 Digital Link or eLeaflet itself. All right, so healthcare is by nature a global sector with supply chain that often cross-border. GS1 global standards systems for product identifications enables an effective and efficient supply chain. At the same time, increasing legal requirements on traceability. GS1 standards play an important role and foundational one, starting from unique product identifier, barcodes placed on the product label, enable traceability to help patient safety. So for those who are new to GS1, GS1 Singapore is one of the 115 independent neutral profit organizations operating across 150 countries. We have helped companies involved in making, moving, and trading make standardize and enhance efficiency in their supply chain processes by using common language of GS1 global standards. GS1 Barcodes is one of the most widely used supply chain standards in the world, enabling more than 2 million of member companies globally to be identify, capture, and share supply chain data critical to their business. And when you step into a supermarket or a retail pharmacy store, when you pick up any products, most likely when you look at the product label, you will see a GS1 barcode on it. So that is how extensively our standards are used in the FMCG retail sector, facilitating B2B and B2C transaction at the product and logistic level. And replicating our success from supporting the global retail trade for nearly 50 years, we have also moved on and actively working with healthcare stakeholders to share on how GS1 standards can be really effective in supporting the healthcare industry to improve healthcare supply chain processes and enhance patient safety with the use of barcodes. So GS1 Healthcare envision a future in which healthcare sector achieve harmonized implementation of global standards in the area of business and clinical processes, enabling interoperability, optimum quality, and effective delivery of healthcare services to benefit patients. And our mission is to be a neutral and open community where we bring together healthcare stakeholders to discuss and implement our standards. So GS1 is part of the Joint Initiative Council. The council is formed to inform the important role of healthcare informatics standards. And one of the important aspects of this group is to address the interoperability of information and processes across healthcare domains. The SDOs in Joint Initiative Council collaborate on standard-based initiative that offers practical solutions, and GS1 standards play in providing our expertise in the area of drug identification and supply chain standards. At the global level, we are collaborating with various healthcare organizations and associations, contributing and supporting different areas of work related to the healthcare sector. And at the local level, here I refer to Singapore, we are also actively engaging the healthcare stakeholders, both companies and the regulators, provide global updates and also guidance on how our standards are being used, such as serialization, traceability, unique device identification, and others. This slide shows you some of our global users in GS1 healthcare community, and it continues to grow every year. On the left, they are pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers. On the right, we have also the logistics service and solution providers. So this group are also an important group, as they are the ones who will deliver the healthcare related solutions in one way or another. So making sure that they understand how GS1 standards are applied and used will ensure a smoother deployment of the solutions to the healthcare stakeholders, and building a more complete healthcare ecosystem, which include understanding how GS1 barcodes are used on product packaging and labeling. In 2016, we launched Project Imagine. It is an initiative where we engage the healthcare providers to implement GS1 standards in hospital. These are some of the government agencies, including GPOs and hospitals around the world, which had already implemented GS1 standards in hospital supply chain. So we have also documented many of these implementations in our annual healthcare reference book, and it's available on our website. If you find out more, please feel free to visit our website. Next few slides, I will share with you a suite of GS1 standards to enable unique identification products in supply chain. And this slide shows you a high-level overview of the GS1 system of standards. We look at it from different layers. The first layer is the identification standards. Any objects in the supply chain can be identified using a GS1 identification. For example, the global trade item number, short GTIN, can be used to identify a pharmaceutical product or medical device. And when you are placing a group of products into a pallet, can use the serial shipping container code SSCC to identify the pallet as a logistic unit. Or, for example, you want to identify a specific medical device asset within a hospital itself, you can also utilize the global returnable or individual asset identifier to identify that asset. Even down to the caregiver or the patient level, we have a GS1 identification key that you can use for global service relation number. So the GS1 identification standards provide a comprehensive list of identification keys, which you can use for different usages. Next, the second layer is the data capturing standards. So once you know which GS1 identification keys to use, then we can move on to select the right suitable data carrier used for capturing the identification data. You may use 1D barcodes, 2D barcodes, RFID tags to capture this information. So different data carriers will have different characteristics. So it all depends on your requirements and the needs. And the third layer here is the data exchange standards. Under here, we have standards to manage master data, transactional data, and events data. But I won't go into very detail on these areas. But the next few slides, I will go more in details into the identification standards and the data carrying standards. So an easy way to remember GS1 system of standards, you just need to remember, identify, capture, and share, right? So next we move on to the pictorial view of the process flow on how you can get started with using GS1 standards. So let's say you are a medical device company and you have 5 types of products. So now you can apply to GS1 Singapore as a member. Once you are registered with us, your company will be allocated a GS1 company prefix. This company prefix is to enable your company to generate a list of global trade item numbers, which you can then use to label your products in the form of barcodes. So with that, you can start selling or distributing your products to the market. So one of the most commonly used GS1 standard is GS1 Global Trade Item Number. The GTIN can be used by a company to identify all the trade items, and GS1 define trade item as product or services that are priced, ordered, or invoiced at any point in the supply chain. For example, a consumer unit, an inner pack, a case, or pallet. So the GTIN is fully compatible with ISO 15459, and what you see here is an example of a GTIN 13 barcode, which comprises 13 digits, and the 13 digit can be broken down into 3 portions, which the GS1 company prefix, the item's reference number, and also check details. So next we move on to the data capture standards. So barcodes are symbols that can be scanned electronically using laser or camera-based system. So under the GS1 family of barcodes, there are general 1D barcodes such as UPC and EAN. There are also 2D barcodes such as GS1 data matrix and GS1 QR codes, which can be used when you need to encode more data into single barcodes. Then we have GS1 data bar, usually used for small to mark items. And we also have 1D barcode for general distribution and logistics usage in the form of GS1 128 barcode and ITF PIN. Okay, so the most commonly used barcode for healthcare are UPCA, EAN 13, GS1 data matrix, and GS1 128 barcodes. Another key benefits of using the GS1 barcode is in its way of structuring data elements. So GS1 application identifiers, in short, are numeric prefixes used in barcodes to define the meaning and the format of the encoded data elements. So AIs are used when you need to encode additional data into your barcodes. So we have defined more than 100 application identifiers in total. In healthcare, these are the 4 widely used AIs. 01 refers to global trade item number, GTIN. 10 refers to batch lot number. 17 refers to expiry date. And 21 refers to serial number. So for a full list of the GS1 application identifiers and their definitions, you may refer to the GS1 general specification for more details. So this is how it looks like on a GS1 128 barcodes and GS1 data matrix code. when you encode GTIN, expiry date, batch number, and serial number into one single barcode itself. And each of the data elements are separated by the application identifier, as you can see here. The bracket 01 refers to the item identifier, 17 refers to the expiry date, 10 refers to the batch number, and bracket 21 refers to the serial number. Okay, so next I will touch on the UDI portion. Okay, we talk about how we can use GS1 standards to meet UDI requirements, and a UDI system is used to mark and identify medical device within the healthcare supply chain. And regulators around the world believe that having a UDI system will increase patient safety and help optimize patient care and outcomes. But in order for it to work well, there must be a globally harmonized and consistent approach in implementing UDI. And the basis is using global standards. So GS1 has been accredited by US FDA, European Commission, and many other regulators around the world, including in Singapore, HSA, to be issuing agency for UDI. And these are some of the key benefits once UDI is implemented and used by healthcare providers. Is able to facilitate traceability of medical device put in the market. It can enhance the effectiveness of post-market safety related activities for the device and allow for better monitoring. It helps reduce medical errors and fight counterfeit products. And it also improves purchase decisions and stock management. So a UDI system as defined by IMDRF comprises of three parts. UDI itself, which comprises of the DI, which is the static information, and PI, which is the dynamic information. And also the other part is the AIDC part, where you use machine-readable data carriers to encode the UDI into the linear barcode, 2D barcode. Even if you want to encode into RFID, that's possible. And the last part is the UDI database. So translating into GS1 system, our identify, capture, and share standards as well for medical device companies to implement or adopt GS1 standards for their UDI label implementation. So now we go a bit deeper on how GS1 standards can be applied as a UDI. So a UDI is made up of UDI DI, the device identifier, and PI, production identifier. In GS1 term, GTIN is equivalent to a UDI DI, and application identifier is equivalent to a UDI PI. So when you are constructing your UDI using GS1 standards, you need to follow the GS1 standard format for generating the UDI numbers. And for example, for the European market itself, there is an additional identification called basic UDI. You can also generate using our global model number, GMN, as the basic UDI DI. So with the GS1 standards, you will be able to implement your UDI labels in a combined manner. And lastly, you also need to take note that within the requirement itself, there is also a human readable information format that you need to include into your UDI labels. So on the right, you can see these are two examples of a UDI label. One is using a GS1 128 barcodes on it, and the other one is using a GS1 data matrix. Okay. So next so this is how a UDI looks like when different symbology is used. In this case, when you look at UDI when it's only encoding a global trade item number, so you can see that for GTIN encoding into an EN barcode, it looks like a normal consumer product itself. But however, when you encode a GT number into a GS1 128 barcode, you need to consider the data format, and the data format here is a 14-digit number. So as you can see, it starts with bracket 01 followed by 0539 something. Yeah. Okay. And for GS1 128 barcodes and for GS1 data matrix code, you also need to include GS1 application identifiers in front. So that's why you see a bracket 01 in front of the barcode itself. But however, when you encode UDI into GS1 28 or GS1 data matrix dynamic information, then that's what you see at the bottom here. The GS1 128 barcode over here includes the GTIN number and the batch number, and GS1 data matrix code is being encoded with data like GTIN, expiry date, batch number, and number. So all the human readable information needs to be within the barcode itself too. So this is just one example of a GTIN number printed directly onto product packaging. So this is only using EN itself, and the GTIN number is being encoded as a product identifier. And this is another example that they are using a label using GS1 128 barcodes, 3 data elements within it, and the batch number, expiry date, and also the GTIN number. So the GS1 barcode can be implemented on all types of healthcare products, includes pharmaceuticals, medical device, retail, and non-retail products. So next, I will briefly touch on the global regulatory requirements on labeling. So this gives you an overview of the various regulations around the world, which requires pharmaceutical products to be identified, and where GS1 standards are able to support. So in EU, they introduced the Falsified Medicine Directive, FMD. So this directive introduced harmonized European measures to fight medicine falsification and ensure that medicines are safe, that the trade in medicines are rigidly controlled. In the US, they introduced the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, DSCSA. So they believe that this will help protect consumers from exposure to drugs that may have counterfeits, stolen, contaminated, or harmful. So for the EU and the US requirements, they outline steps which requires manufacturers, distributors, pharmacies, including the retail and hospitals, to move towards unique product identification, serialization, and having an end-to-end product traceability. On the product label requirements, they are recommending the use of GS1 data matrix code with GTIN, batch number, expiry date, and serial number encoded. For US market, the serialization has to be done by 2019, and companies need to have their traceability system in place by 2023. EU, both serialization and its end-to-end verification systems were already in force as of February 2019. So this means that if you are exporting your products to this market, you have to comply to the serialization requirements. And the list goes on, such as Australia TG091, which cover labeling requirements for prescription medicines. In South Korea, all pharmaceutical products needs to be uniquely identified and serialized. So different countries will have different sets of requirements. However, mostly the fundamental global unique identification requirements are more or less very similar. On the medical device UDI front, these are some of the more prominent ones which we are tracking. As you can see, US FDA had implemented UDI labels since as early as 2013 over a 10 years time frame. The EU, the Medical Device Regulations, MDR, and Electrodiagnostics Regulation, IVDR, were introduced in 2017. And by 2021, last year, they already started implementing that on class 3 items. In China, they have announced their plan of implementing UDI in 2019, and many more of such regulations are coming up. So Singapore HSA had announced their plans to implement UDI system August last year. So all these requirements will shape how product labeling needs to be barcode with unique identification. And this is something which you should be aware of, especially if you are from the quality control and regulatory affairs department. So be it you are from the pharmaceutical end or medical device end itself, so these regulatory requirements are very similar, as I mentioned. So it comes from the angle of protecting the supply chain, preventing counterfeits, and to enhance patient safety. And the basis of achieving that is to start with unique identification with the use of other data elements which can be added to the packaging label that would be able to support the traceability activities. For medical device, we call UDI. In pharmaceuticals, we call serialization and traceability. So next, I want to touch on GS1 Digital Link for e-labels. GS1 Digital Link is new GS1 standards. They are considered as web-enabled barcodes by providing a simple standard-based structure for the data encoded in barcodes. In healthcare, there is a growing need to access information online about medicines and medical device. However, too often product information is not readily available and difficult to access. At the same time, regulators are also requesting for e-leaflets to be provided on products in the future. Today, often requires additional 2 codes on the packaging, making it expensive and complex for manufacturers to implement it. Additionally, with multiple barcodes on a product, it can cause issue with scanning at the point of care, point of dispense, and also across the supply chain. So simply to put it, there is no seamless, non-proprietary way for the manufacturers to communicate comprehensive information about the products to the healthcare providers and patient via a single barcode scan. So the GS1 Digital Link offers a unique solution to this problem, and the Digital Link delivers a straightforward rules that manufacturers or solution providers can use to develop apps, mobile apps or websites, translating barcodes into connections that can enable users to access digital content anywhere in the world. And this is how it works when 1D barcode or GS1 data matrix code used with Digital Link. A GS1 standards, the GS1 standards specify how any valid sets of GS1 element string can be converted into a digital link, and vice versa, how the element strings can be extracted from GS1 Digital Link in a way to enable that single barcode access information. The traditional GS1 AI syntax and the Digital Link syntax are completely interchangeable. So giving you an example, your product packaging is barcoded with a GS1 data matrix with GTINs and additional attributes. So when you use a mobile app developed with a GS1 Digital Link standards to scan the GS1 data matrix code, the app will first route it to a resolver service. And a resolver service is a system that stores the URLs of the resources you like to make it available to the market. So it is like a resolver service redirecting service. So in this case, it redirects to the manufacturers the product information web page, and the data matrix contains additional data such as expiry date and the mobile apps in this case capture this information and prompt the users that the product could be expired. So that is another possible features how digital link standards are able to use. So this is another example how a digital link can be routed to different users scanning the same barcode for different products and data information within it. So, for example, a doctor scan on it directs them to the professional medicine medical device specification. If a patient scan on it, it directs them to how to use instruction manual, for example. And this is another demo example. So a GS1 data matrix code contains the GTIN numbers on it. On the resolver end, the global trade item number is converted into the digital link URL, and a menu of eLeaflets in different languages are loaded. So when we use a mobile app scan on the data matrix itself, it links the users to a set of a menu in the resolver for the product information. And depending on the user coming from which country itself, they are then able to select the right language to select the right eLeaflets information that they want to refer to. For example, in France, then they will pick up the France eLeaflet information. If they are from Germany, they will read up information in German language itself. Okay, so this is how on the backend itself, the resolver looks like when you are setting up your URLs, which you want to link it to the global trade item number. So whenever there is a change to the content, you can update it from the resolver. And the introduction of the GS1 Digital Link does not mean that the use of barcode is changing. On the contrary, the manufacturer, distributors, and hospitals still use the same barcode for many years to come for different purposes such as traceability, point of care, scanning, etc. But for now, with GS1 Digital Link, they will be able to have the additional opportunity to access relevant information online. And there are many benefits it can bring to patient experience, supply chain data sharing ecosystems, and also enhancing traceability. And in conclusion, adoption and implementation of GS1 standards, identify, capture, share, provides the foundation framework to enable an effective supply chain and meeting the regulatory compliance and getting the product identification is in the form of a barcode right from the start of your supply chain, gives you end-to-end visibility, system interoperability, and also enable traceability, which enhances patient safety. So with that, thank you, and happy to take any question if there are any. Over back to you, host.
Hi, Andy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for your perceptive presentation and for participating so effectively. We are delighted for the time and effort you took to share your expertise with us. I'll ask the audience that if they're having any question, they can ask us in the chat or in the QA session. And Andy is here to answer all of our questions. So thank you so much, Andy.
All right, thank you very much.
Have a nice day.